after discovering that my wife was cheating. I secretly followed her lover for 3 days and 3 nights. What I found was shocking. He drove luxury cars and lived in a villa. He turned out to be a filthy rich second-generation heir. He would casually gift handbags worth tens of thousands and transfer hundreds of thousands without even blinking. Yet, despite being so rich and indulgent, he never stayed out overnight, even when my wife warmly invited him. He would say, "Sorry, my mom told me to go home for dinner." So, I decisively took photos and sent them to his mother. I said, "Do you know your son is messing around with a married woman?" After a long while, she finally replied, "Got it. I was cheated on." Chapter 1. I stared at the phone screen for a long time and still couldn't figure it out. Why is it said that she was cheated on? It was clearly me who was cheated on. Maybe the older lady just made a typo. After all, finding out her son had such terrible morals, her hands probably trembled while typing. Patiently, I corrected her. "Auntie, I'm the one who got played. Your son and my wife are secretly seeing each other." After thinking for a moment, I added, "If typing is inconvenient, we can talk on the phone." She only replied with a few words, "Let's meet and talk." Chapter 2. Before this, I thought Makoto's mother must be at least 50 years old. I didn't expect her to look so young, but even if she took great care of herself, she shouldn't look like the woman in front of me. Her features were cold and stunning. Her makeup was exquisite, and she wore an apricot-colored lace shawl paired with a matching mesh long dress, radiating elegance and nobility. But this was my first time doing something like this. How was I supposed to start the conversation? I cleared my throat and said, "I didn't expect you to look so young. You look like you're in your early 20s. She slightly raised her eyes and stared at me. "I'm 30. I froze. "Huh?" She pressed her lips together. 30. Oh. I quickly took a sip of coffee. At the peak of awkwardness, I inexplicably blurted out, "Then you must have had a child very early." She fell silent for a moment, her fingertips resting on the rim of the cup. "Actually, I'm not his biological mother." It took me a second to react. "So you're his stepmom?" Something like that." She lowered her head and took a sip of water. I nodded. "No wonder you look so young." She took a deep breath, glanced at me, then took out a business card from her bag and placed it between us. "My name is Anna. Let's get straight to the point." She withdrew her hand and said, "About Makoto and your wife, I want to hear all the details." I tightened my grip on the coffee cup. "All right." Chapter 3. My wife is a teacher at a piano training center. Makoto is a student there. I don't know exactly when they got together, but 3 months ago, when I went to pick my wife up from work, I caught them hugging and kissing by the piano. At that moment, rage surged through me, and my heart clenched painfully. I wanted to rush forward, push open the door, and make them pay on the spot. But reason forced me to calm down. I memorized his face, slipped into the office, and checked the student records until I found his name, Makoto. He was young, yet he had signed up for advanced lessons costing 5,000 per session, and paid for 32 classes in one go without hesitation. A total of 160,000, I said. For someone his age, that's not a small amount. Anna listened with a calm, distant expression. She said, I remember he asked me for 200,000, saying he wanted to start a business, TCH, so he pocketed an extra 40,000. I couldn't help but complain inwardly. A doting mother really does spoil her child. If only I had a mom like that. Since I had only caught them once, I wasn't sure if it was just a fleeting fling or something ongoing, so I started following him. To my surprise, Makoto lived a life of pure indulgence. Not only did he not have to work, he slept until the afternoon every day before going out. He drove luxury cars worth millions, lived in a villa in an upscale neighborhood, and spent his time either partying or taking friends to high-end clubs to splurge. After following him for half a month, I was starting to feel depressed myself. I shook my head. Honestly, I find it hard to understand. With his conditions, I don't get why he would go after my wife. With his resources, he could have anyone. Anna's expression darkened slightly, her lips pressed tight. Your wife must be quite young, right? I answered openly. No, ours is a woman-older relationship. She's almost 30. 30. Anna seemed genuinely surprised by the answer. She curled her lips slightly, then looked me up and down before asking with certainty. So, is she especially beautiful? I handed her my phone and showed her a photo of Willow. I shrugged. She's, all right, not even as pretty as you. She instinctively looked up at me, narrowing her eyes, her tone turning subtle. You think I'm prettier than your wife? I was momentarily stunned. Is that what I meant? I said. No, I mean, we're just ordinary people. We can't compare to you and your son. She stared at me for a while, then suddenly grabbed my phone. Her fingertip tapped lightly on the screen. She let out a cold snort. Seems like you've got good taste. I was speechless. I pulled my phone back and said word by word. Mrs. Su, I came to you because I want you to keep your son in check, she replied. Of course I'll deal with him. She nodded, then looked up at me, her tone calm and distant. But I don't understand, your wife cheated. Do you still want to win her back? Her words were like a heavy hammer striking the deepest wound in my heart. I raised my hand. Of course not. I stood up, took a deep breath, and looked down at her. I just don't want my ex-wife to have the chance to marry into a wealthy family after we divorce. Anna remained seated, unmoving, lifting her eyes to look at me with interest. She asked, "What's your name?" I slowly extended my hand toward her. "I'm George Wang." Chapter 4. When I got home, Willow was moving a blanket into the second bedroom. I stood at the doorway, glanced at her, and asked, "What's going on?" She smiled sweetly at me and replied naturally, "I've been trying to lose weight lately. I need to wake up at 5 for morning runs, so I don't want to wake you up." Oh, I ignored her. More likely, she was trying to stay pure for her lover. I walked into the master bedroom, took out the business card, and started searching online. I had gotten Anna's phone number earlier from the property management at Makoto's residential complex. I wanted to know what exactly she did. To my surprise, when I searched her name, countless affiliated companies popped up, some of which I had even heard of. She was insanely wealthy. Well, that explained it. No wonder Makoto was such a pampered mama's boy. "Honey, do you want some coffee I made myself?" Willow suddenly appeared. I immediately shut my laptop, afraid she might see. She placed a cup of hot coffee in front of me. She let out a soft hum, then said cautiously, "I have a student. His family is pretty wealthy." She pressed her lips together and continued, "You know I've always wanted to open my own studio. He said he might be interested in investing, and wants to come to our place tonight to talk." I understood instantly. I looked up at her. "Which one?" "Makoto." When she said his name, her expression was completely natural, as if it had nothing to do with her at all. "Sure," I replied. "Then should I cook and show off a bit?" Willow waved her hands quickly. No, I'll do it," she said with a bright smile. "You don't need to do anything." I looked at her, feeling a brief moment of confusion. How should I put it? Willow wasn't ordinary looking. She had that refined, understated beauty, well-educated, gentle, the kind of woman who could easily marry up, if her heart had already changed. Why bother pretending so well? At 6 in the evening, Makoto came to my house. Willow went into the kitchen to cook, while I chatted with Makoto in the living room. Looking at the medals and certificates in the cabinet, Makoto smiled. I didn't expect George to be so accomplished at such a young age. I leaned back against the sofa and replied casually, "Oh, is that really so surprising?" Makoto paused for a moment, at a loss for words. Then he said, "But living like this must be exhausting, right?" He shifted his gaze toward the kitchen, toward Willow. "Do you know why I came to your house for dinner?" He turned back and looked straight at me. "Because the property management told me that recently, there's been a suspicious person asking about me, so he already knew." Makoto leaned closer to me, lowering his voice. "I'm here to warn you." I narrowed my eyes, waiting for what he would say next. Chapter 5. However, the very next second, "Dinner's ready." Willow's voice cut in, breaking the strange tension between Makoto and me. At the table, Willow chatted with him while serving me food. I didn't take a single bite. Who would willingly act in a play with no audience? Makoto suddenly pointed his chopsticks toward the bedding in the second bedroom and smiled. "You two even sleep in separate rooms?" Willow replied naturally. "Yeah, we've both been really busy with work, so sleeping separately helps us rest better." Her vague wording would easily make people think we had been sleeping apart for a long time. I didn't expose her lie. Sure enough, Makoto believed it and shot me a smug smile. Expressionless, I put down my chopsticks and stood up. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." Then I turned and walked away. Willow instinctively glanced at me, but after Makoto called her back to attention, she continued discussing business with him. Makoto said confidently, "Don't worry about the money. I've got it covered. My family actually wants me to try finding some investment projects on my own." Willow, however, acted reserved. "Makoto, don't rush into it. I'll send you the proposal. You can decide after you've reviewed it." Makoto nodded. "All right, I'll take a look first." I stopped at the corner, took out my phone, and sent a message to someone. "MS. Sue, Makoto is at my house. If you can't discipline your son, I'll do it for you." A minute later, she replied, "Go ahead. I don't have the time to deal with him." My eyes widened. This woman was truly something else. A moment later, I returned to my seat. Makoto seemed to be in an excellent mood. He glanced at me and joked to Willow, "Once your studio is up and running, you'll be the boss lady." Haha. Willow blushed and protested. "Makoto, what nonsense are you saying?" Makoto quickly corrected himself. My bad, boss. You'll be the boss." This was a meal I had absolutely no appetite for. I looked at Makoto carefully and said coldly, "But for such a large sum of money, can you really afford it on your own?" He met my gaze and sneered. "This is nothing to me. My family has plenty of money. As long as I want something, there's nothing I can't get." Willow tugged at my arm. "Honey," she gave me a look. I said, "I'm just worried he might be pushing himself too hard." I smiled, then turned to Willow. "I know you've always wanted to open a studio, so I recently contacted a friend. Why don't you send me the proposal? She's very interested in this. I slipped my hand into my pocket, felt the thin card, and without hesitation took it out and placed it on the table. Willow froze for a moment and read the name on it. Anna. Across from me, Makoto's expression changed instantly. He stared at me in disbelief, his earlier arrogance completely gone. I quietly enjoyed watching his expression shift. So, he really was afraid. The next second, Makoto's phone rang. That special ringtone, sharp and sudden, startled him badly. He gripped his phone, shot to his feet, and said nervously, "Ah, it's my mom calling." I'll take this." He rushed into the bathroom and shut the door tightly. I couldn't help but chuckle. Looks like Anna finally had time, and even called him directly. Willow asked what I was laughing about. I said slowly, "A grown man in his 20s, still this scared of his mom, don't you find that funny?" Willow replied, "No." She didn't smile. Instead, she picked up the business card and looked at me. "How do you know Anna?" I spread my hands. "A friend of mine happens to know her assistant and helped me get in touch." Just as I was about to take the card back, Willow avoided my hand and slipped it into her bag. "Then I'll keep it," she said. Less than a minute later, Makoto came out. His face looked terrible, flustered. He said he had to leave and hurried off. After Willow closed the door, she murmured in confusion, "What's wrong with Makoto?" I shrugged. Who knows? Maybe his mom told him to go home for dinner. I had lost all interest as I turned to head back to the room. After just a few steps, someone suddenly hugged me from behind. Willow pressed against my back, her voice soft and alluring. "Honey." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, pulled her arms away, and turned around. "Didn't you just say we'd be sleeping separately from now on?" Willow's expression stiffened slightly. Her lips moved, but no words came out. I smiled. "Good night." I walked into the bedroom alone. Chapter 6. The past few days, Makoto hasn't shown up for class. I heard it from Willow. She lightly tapped her cheek and said, "Do you think something happened to him?" She checked her phone frequently, but there were no messages. I casually said, "Maybe it's because of the investment. He probably couldn't come up with that much money, so he's just cut off contact." I passed by Willow and walked toward the door, laughing. "Do you really have high hopes for him?" Willow furrowed her brows. She turned around and stared at me. "Where are you going?" "Meeting a friend." I grabbed my car keys. She complained, "You've been going out alone a lot lately." I met her gaze. "Do you want to come with me?" She nodded, about to walk over, when her phone rang. She glanced at it and then looked at me apologetically. "There's something I need to take care of." "All right." I interrupted her, then left the house. The friend I was meeting was a divorce lawyer. The lawyer said, "The divorce agreement has been drafted." I handed him the photos I had taken of Willow and Makoto on their dates, mostly shots of them holding hands, hugging, and other intimate interactions. He shook his head. "As evidence for her infidelity, these aren't sufficient." I put the photos back in the envelope. I asked, "What level of evidence do I need for you to be confident that you can help me secure all the assets?" He asked me in return, "All the assets?" I looked up and confirmed, "Yes, I want her to leave with nothing." Before I left, the lawyer told me that more direct evidence was required. More direct. I pulled out my phone, found Willow's location, and drove there. It was a winding mountain road. Willow and Makoto were standing by the roadside. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Makoto reached out to grab her hand, and Willow coldly pushed him away. I sat in the car, quickly snapped a photo, but when I checked the photo, I saw that Willow was looking in my direction. Damn it, she recognized my car. My heart raced. I looked up again, and Willow was walking toward me. I couldn't let her see me. I immediately made a U-turn and left. In the rearview mirror, Willow's car was tailing me closely. I slammed on the gas, speeding up. After a while, I managed to distance myself, but just as I was about to make a turn, a car slowly came around the corner. I slammed the brakes hard, turned the steering wheel, but still ended up with a bad scrape. Damn it, it's a Bentley. I slammed my hand on the steering wheel and had no choice but to get out of the car. I was about to apologize when I realized the person getting out of the car was Anna. Thankfully, she still remembered me. Anna looked at my ostentatious car, then rolled her eyes, practicing drifting. I was out of options, so I had to ask for her help. Embarrassed, I said, "I've been spotted." Willow's car is behind me. Anna was speechless. She had the driver move my car. I got into Anna's car. My phone buzzed with Willow's name on the screen. I answered, and before I could speak, she asked, "Honey, are you nearby? I think I saw your car on the road." Willow's voice was laced with unmistakable anxiety. I spoke calmly. "My car got into a minor accident, so it's probably been taken to the shop for repairs." "Oh, I see." Willow breathed a sigh of relief. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she asked. "So where are you now? Should I come meet you?" I instinctively glanced at Anna, hesitated for a second, then said, "No need. I'm taking a cab." The call ended. Anna chuckled softly. "Both of you are really good at lying." I was silent. The car drove through the winding mountain roads, the scenery outside resembling a lush green painting. I was confused. This doesn't seem like the way back to the city. Anna nodded. I have plans today. I'm meeting a friend for dinner. I asked in disbelief. Ah, so what about me? She responded. You're just hitching a ride. Wherever we're headed, that's where you go. Right. Anna turned to look at me, her tone matter of fact. I frowned and opened my mouth. You're having dinner with someone. What am I supposed to do there? She gave me a quick glance, then said slowly. If you leave, it's considered a hit and run. I was speechless. I had no choice but to go with Anna for dinner. The place was tucked deep in the mountains, a private dining spot not open to the public. Several people were waiting for her. Her friend asked, Anna, why are you late today? She replied, had a car accident, just survived it. Chapter 7. Everyone fell silent. I sat next to Anna, feeling like I was sitting on pins and needles, especially during dinner. My phone kept ringing. Willow was trying to reach me. I stood up, and some people glanced over. Anna half teased, half explained. He's a henpecked husband. Ah. Now, everyone was looking at me. I stood there, opened my mouth, but decided to stay silent. Turning to answer the call, on the other end of the line, Willow's voice was forced. Why haven't you been answering my calls? I looked at the screen, about 20 missed calls. I said, I'm having dinner with some friends. She asked, what kind of friends, male or female? I felt a headache coming on, I replied. Both male and female. There was silence on the other end. I hung up the phone, preparing to head back, but suddenly heard someone say, your taste in people is getting more and more discerning. Anna responded. Just regular friends. She focused on eating. Everyone exchanged puzzled looks. I sat back down after a moment, pretending I hadn't heard, but then Anna's friend suddenly became curious about me. She asked, Anna, where's he from? Anna looked directly at me. Where are you from? I felt awkward. I said, from Sea City. Her friend pressed on. And what does Mr. Wang do for a living? Anna turned to me. Right, what do you do? I quickly chimed in. I'm in music, mostly writing songs, and I also teach at a school. Nice. She nodded approvingly. Her friend frowned slightly, giving Anna a helpless glance. How come you don't know anything? Anna set down her knife and fork. I know his wife cheated, their marriage is falling apart, and they're about to divorce. That's all. Isn't that enough? The room fell into complete silence. You could hear a pin drop. I said. Well, I'm done eating. I'll just head out now. I couldn't sit still anymore, so I hurriedly left the scene. I didn't expect that as soon as I stepped out, I'd see Makoto approaching. He was clearly coming to see Anna. Behind him, Anna was following, her tone light as she said, "You've finished eating before I even had my fill." I gave her a look and said, "Makoto's here." Anna then noticed him in the distance. She froze for a moment, handed me the car keys, and said, "Go start the car." But before she could get into the car, Makoto rushed over and started talking to her. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Makoto's face was scrunched in frustration. His emotions clearly stirred. Anna, on the other hand, stepped back, speaking in an indifferent tone. I subtly cracked open the window. Her cold voice floated in. She said, "When you said you wanted to start a business, that's when I lent you the money." Makoto's voice was hoarse, stuttering. "I didn't. I don't know what. Someone must have told you something." But Anna showed no emotion. She said, "Who said it doesn't matter? Let's just leave it at that." Just as she was about to open the car door, Makoto took a few steps forward, grabbed the door, and suddenly kneeled in front of her. He said, "Anna, I know, I was wrong." His desperate, humble appearance made it impossible to see the arrogance he once had. Anna looked at him calmly and said, "Don't make this look so pathetic." Just then, my phone rang, startling me into quickly silencing it. Makoto froze, trying to look inside the car, but Anna blocked his view. He realized something and his face turned ashen. Anna got into the passenger seat, glanced at me, and without a word, rolled up the window. She asked, "Did you overhear?" I avoided her gaze, slowly realizing, "You're not his mom." Anna rolled her eyes. "I never said I was. I just said it was close enough." I fell silent for a moment and asked, "Close enough to what?" She replied, "Raising a thankless son." I was speechless. I drove down the mountain road. Anna swiped her finger across the screen, playing an English song. I seriously felt like I was going crazy. I never expected the complaints would end up reaching the source. My first instinct was to apologize. "I'm sorry." In the end, I just couldn't control my wife. Ah, what a useless husband. She suddenly sighed. Chapter 8. I wiped my face, stunned by her remark. With a stiff smile, I replied, "Miss Sue, it seems like you have a problem with me." She snorted and said, "No, I've been played. That's just how I talk now." She added, "Hope you can understand." She had just said everything. I retorted, "I've been played too, so why should I understand you?" She kept scrolling through her phone without showing any sign of being offended. She said, "Oh, so you only forgive your wife. I get it. If you want to make it through life, there's always a bit of green on your head. Of course, you'll choose to forgive her. I was speechless. The car took a sharp turn, and Anna leaned back slightly, her words abruptly cutting off. The view around us filled with lush green hills. The English song hit its climax. I love this stretch of road, Anna suddenly said. I glanced at the mountain view ahead, which was indeed very green. But my phone vibrated again. Willow kept calling. Anna noticed too. She seems to call every 10 minutes. I silenced the screen and said, I don't know what's going on with her lately. Anna looked at me and said, people who cheat have less security than those who don't because they know what they're doing when they're not answering their calls. I couldn't help but laugh in frustration. Does she still suspect that I'm the one cheating? Anna silently turned her gaze away, her tone tinged with some disappointment as she said, I guess you're not planning to cheat on her to get back at her. I was speechless. After a while, the music suddenly stopped, and Anna's phone rang. She looked at the incoming number, frowned, and pressed the answer button. Hello. Sorry, is this Anna's assistant? Anna's Bluetooth was connected to the car, and the voice was on speaker. So in an instant, I recognized the voice. My body stiffened. Why was she calling? Anna, oblivious, said, This is Anna. How did you get my number? The person on the other end paused for 3 seconds, and their voice turned unexpectedly cold. I'm George's wife. Anna Sue froze, not speaking. Willow's voice came through the speaker, mixed with some static. She said, MS, Sue. Sorry to disturb you. I couldn't get in touch with George. He mentioned he was having dinner with you, but I'm not sure if you're still together. Ah. Anna looked at me in disbelief. I immediately waved my hand, signaling that I hadn't said anything like that. Willow was fishing for information. Anna understood the situation and said, I wasn't having dinner with him. You must be mistaken. Willow replied, Maybe I made a mistake. Sorry for disturbing you, Anna said. It's no big deal. She paused for a moment before slowly adding, However, Miss Lou, if you can't reach your husband, you should call the police station, not randomly call a stranger. It's quite rude, don't you think? Willow's voice was silent for a while. She said, MS, Sue, you wouldn't understand. Of course, I'm home alone, calling around to find out where my husband is. Yes, it's rude, but compared to these small things, I care more about where my husband is. Her voice dropped lower, each word deliberate. I care more about who's destroying my family. Anna furrowed her brows, no longer smiling. Willow continued, So, am I offending you with all of this? I gestured for Anna to hang up quickly. Anna found an excuse and said, Sorry, I have another call coming in. Willow's voice was eerie but calm. I didn't say anything. My last name is Lou. Chapter 9. Anna hung up the phone with a look on her face as if she had seen a ghost. She trembled and said, Pull over. I can't take it anymore. She got out of the car to get some air, clutching her chest and muttering, She thinks I'm the mistress. How terrifying. Anna seemed to be rambling. So I said, Being in this line of work must be really stressful. I sighed. You let something slip. Anna pouted. Did you marry Sherlock Holmes? You stalk her. She interrogates you. I gave a self-deprecating smile. Unfortunate marriages make great detectives. Anna rolled her eyes at me and replied irritably, How did she get my number? I shrugged. You gave me your business card, and she must have taken it, Anna said. Well, I'm blocking her then. She lowered her head, fiddling with her phone. After a moment, she looked up at me and said, I added you on WeChat. Make sure to accept. I was caught off guard. She broke up with Makoto. So why did she want to add me on WeChat? Was there still a reason to stay in touch? Thinking about everything that had happened today, especially the image of Makoto kneeling in front of her, I couldn't shake it from my mind. I didn't want any involvement with her. I said, MS, Sue, I'm not divorced yet. Let's not keep in touch. She paused, raised her eyebrows, and looked at me thoughtfully. What do you mean? I carefully chose my words. I'm a proper man. Anna was speechless and said, Oh, so I'm not proper. She sighed deeply, bit her lip, and narrowed her eyes slightly. You mean to say my wife seduced my boyfriend, and I didn't even take it up with her? Then she calls me, accusing me of things, and I'm called a mistress without any reason. And now you say I'm not proper. I didn't mean. She didn't give me a chance to speak. She continued. I've been deceived for money, mistreated, and called a mistress. I've had enough. Now I just want to crash into all of you idiots. Saying that, she suddenly grabbed my arm and started walking toward the front of the car. You come with me. No, calm down, Anna. This is a society governed by law. There are surveillance cameras everywhere. She was seething with anger. You know it's a society governed by law. She snapped. She continued. I'm on my only day off, trying to have a meal, and I meet you speeding through the mountains. Do you know the speed limit is 40 here? How fast were you going? I froze for a moment, struggling to recall. I said, 85. She fumed. 85. If I wasn't following traffic laws, you would have hit me and killed me. She grabbed my ear, pulling me to the spot where the car had been damaged. She scolded. Look at what you did to my car, and you're still refusing to add me on WeChat. Are you planning to run away? I felt both ashamed and nervous. I said, "Ms. Sue, I'm sorry. I take full responsibility." She finally let go of my ear and, in a bad mood, threatened. "Are you going to add me or not?" "Fine, I'll add you right now," she commanded. "Pin me to the top," I responded. "Okay," she said. "Make me a special focus," I replied. "Why a special focus?" Anna paused for a moment and said, "My car is expensive. I'm going to ask you for compensation. Don't act like you don't see it." All right. I chose to surrender. Damn capitalist. Making so much money and still asking me for compensation. I squatted on the side of the mountain road with Anna. I pulled out my phone and began operating it right under her watchful eye. She said, "Don't hide me from your WeChat moments," I responded. "All right," she said. "I want to be pinned above your wife." I couldn't take it anymore and shot her a glare. Anna clapped her hands, stood up, and said, "Fine. Wife comes first." Finally, we reached an understanding. Chapter 10. Half an hour later, the car entered the city. I said I had to leave first to avoid being seen by Willow. She asked, "So what if she sees you? Can you stop being so scared of your wife?" I didn't explain, just awkwardly changed the subject. "This car is Southwest hard to drive." Anna leaned over to look at me, her voice heavy with meaning. "Maybe it's because you've never driven a good car before." I was taken aback. I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out of the car. She still stared at me, then blinked and said, "Go ahead." I walked a few steps, then thought about saying something when I looked back, but she was already driving off, almost out of sight. Apparently, she could drive quickly too. As the sky darkened, the streetlights slowly flickered on. I had been busy all day and walked wearily along the sidewalk. I stopped when I saw Willow ahead. I asked, "What are you doing here?" She linked her arm through mine, her expression as usual. "You said you were taking a cab. I figured you'd get off around here." She stared at me, seemingly watching my reaction. I wasn't sure if she had seen Anna's car, but since she didn't say anything, I didn't want to bring it up. I stayed silent. She stood on tiptoe, leaned close to my neck, and sniffed, carefully confirming something. There's no scent of perfume, no smell of alcohol, but gasoline. Her nose was really good. Maybe I should come back as a dog in my next life. I frowned and said, "Like I said, when you crash into someone, the smell of gasoline is pretty normal." She wrapped her arm around mine again. "As long as you're okay, that's all that matters." I didn't say anything, just brushed her hand off me. She asked, "What's wrong?" We locked eyes, and I grew a little impatient with her obvious question. I said, "Just leave it. Let's walk this way, and wait for the day when it's over." When we got back, the table had Willow's food on it, some of it already cold. I said, "I've already eaten." She stopped with her hand on the cupboard. I was tired from the day's events, so I took a bath, leaning on the edge of the tub and scrolling through my phone. The WeChat moments Anna had posted made me drowsy. It was really boring. Halfway through, Willow came in to grab the laundry basket, getting ready to wash it. I instinctively turned my back to her, but suddenly, everything went silent. It felt off. I felt a finger press against the scratch on my arm. "How did you get this?" Willow's voice was cold. She was asking about the mark Anna had left when she had grabbed me earlier. In that moment, the water in the bathtub seemed to have turned cold. I said, "It was just a scratch." I didn't turn around. She took a deep breath, pulled her hand back, and placed the towel by the tub. "Be careful next time." She went to do the laundry. I stared at the door for a moment, lost in thought. After my bath, I sat on the side of the bed and realized the bed had been made, with 2 pillows placed neatly. "I'm going to sleep here," Willow said, walking in from the balcony. She explained, "I won't be running in the mornings anymore." I didn't say anything. I pulled the covers back and lay down. After a while, the lights went out. In the darkness, the blanket slowly rose, bringing in the cold air from outside and the familiar scent. Willow's arm wrapped around me, a bit cold. "Honey." Willow's voice was soft and seductive. "Who did you have dinner with today?" I closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. Not long after, a slender hand slid under the covers. I quickly opened my eyes and pressed her hand down. Willow stared at me intently. She said, "You're pretending to sleep and ignoring me." I didn't avoid her gaze but looked straight at her and said, "Who I have dinner with is my own business. You don't need to check on me every time with a phone call. Don't you think that's embarrassing?" She seemed to feel hurt by what I said, slowly lowering her head, her whole face hidden in the dark, her expression unreadable. She said, "George, I didn't call every single one. I only called your colleague and one more." My heart instantly skipped a beat. She said, "I called Anna." In the thick, suffocating darkness, Willow's voice was sharp, cutting through all the ambiguity. She said, "So, you heard her say I called everyone, right?" She emphasized. "Or were you right next to her while she was on the phone?" She asked. "Why didn't you speak up? Were you teaching her to lie to me?" She's good at pretending. Chapter 11. I kept my eyes wide open, gritting my teeth. I asked, "Willow, are you doubting me?" She replied, "You can explain." Her voice was hurried, short, as if it had caught in her throat. I said, "Just a regular friend. I crashed her car. Came back with her. That's all." I dropped the sentence and turned over to continue pretending to sleep. Willow was silent for a long time, then mumbled, "I believe you." After a short while, she moved closer and said in a sticky voice, "Honey, I'm tired." I avoided her gaze. She said, "But it's been so long." I moved a little further away from her. Willow didn't finish her sentence and quietly lay down. I kept my eyes closed, but there was no sleepiness. Ever since I found out about her and Makoto 3 months ago, I hadn't touched this woman. Maybe I had loved her too much before. The thought of her doing that with someone else made me feel disgusted, the feeling crawling up my throat, making me want to vomit. At 2:30 a.m., Willow was fast asleep. I quietly got up, grabbed her phone, and opened the chat list. Makoto's messages were folded. I tapped on it and saw unread messages. The first one read, "Willow, something happened at home, so I won't be coming for a few days. I miss you." The next one said, "Did you catch up? Is that your husband's car? If he's really stalking us, don't you think he's despicable?" I stared at those words, my eyes stinging from the pain. There were no other messages besides these. They must have been deleted. I checked the transaction records but found nothing. Willow was a meticulous person. I put the phone back in its place. The person beside me instinctively reached out toward me, but her hand grasped only air. I walked out onto the balcony, crossed my arms, and gazed up at the starless sky, feeling a sense of loneliness I had never experienced before. I thought back to that year when I was penniless, on that rainy night when Willow held an umbrella and accompanied me while I delivered food. After finishing the last order, she raised her phone to take a picture, the misty rain light reflecting in her eyes, making them sparkle. She said, "I love you, George." Why did love suddenly fail, without any warning? And even when everything seemed fine, I closed my eyes, suppressing the tears, and turned around. To my surprise, Willow was quietly standing by the door. Not sure how long she had been watching me, she spoke coldly. "Not sleeping at midnight. Who are you thinking about?" The person I truly loved had quietly died, leaving behind a body occupied by something unknown. "I'm thinking about you. Do you believe me?" Willow heard this and coldly laughed. We brushed past each other. Chapter 12. The next morning, as I was heading out to work, Willow followed me into the elevator. She said, "I'll go with you." I stood still, confused, looking at her. It seemed like she had completely forgotten about last night. With a cheerful tone, she added, "Your car was sent for repairs, right? I'm going that way today. It's on my way." She even remembered that. I had to give her credit. I said, "I'll just take a cab." As I took out my phone, she quickly snatched it from my hands. "I want to come with you." Willow looked at me sideways, and just then, an ear-piercing notification sound rang out. She froze for a moment, about to look at the screen, but I quickly grabbed it back. Willow asked, "You don't like setting special alerts, do you?" I replied, That was before. I stood in the corner of the elevator, unlocked the screen, and saw a message from Anna. She wrote, "I've switched cars. What about you?" I replied with a string of question marks. She was already provoking me this early in the morning. She responded, "I made breakfast. Do you want some?" I typed, "No time." Anna didn't reply after that. Willow's cold voice cut through the silence. "The elevator's here." It was the first floor. Willow asked me to wait while she went to get the car. But before we could leave, a sedan stopped in front of us. The person who got out of the driver's seat told me it was a courtesy car from the 4S store while mine was being repaired. I was momentarily stunned and asked, "A courtesy car?" The person seemed totally natural, handing me the car keys. "Yeah, the staff called you this morning." I nodded slowly, still processing. Willow seemed puzzled. "They're giving out such nice cars as courtesy cars now." She stood beside me and looked up with a soft smile. "Honey, just drive my car. It's been a while since we've gone to work together." I hesitated for a moment before taking the car keys and getting into the car. I said, "No need. You go ahead with your things." In the rearview mirror, Willow's expression was wooden, her figure shrinking as I drove away. I pulled my gaze back and noticed a cardboard box on the passenger seat. I reached for it, feeling it was warm, probably the breakfast she had made for me. Suddenly, a weight lifted off my chest. At noon, I received a call, this time actually from the 4S store. "Mr. Wong, your wife just requested to retrieve the historical driving data and records." I asked, "Did you give it to her?" The person on the other end responded, "She was in a hurry, said it was for insurance claims." I replied, That's right." The person continued, "By the way, she mentioned you might need a courtesy car. We have a few options available. Would you like us to send one over?" I gripped my phone tightly and said, "No need, thank you." The call ended. A female colleague of mine was surprised. "Wow, George, did you strike it rich? You're driving luxury cars now. Must be worth millions." "Huh?" I gave an awkward smile and replied, "It's a friend's car, just borrowed it." She got even more excited and asked, "A friend? Is it a man or a woman?" "Single," Can you introduce me? Just then, someone knocked on the office door, interrupting her enthusiasm. Ah, Willow's here. I looked up, and Willow smiled at me. She had come to have lunch with me. I asked, "What are you doing here?" Willow said, "Picking a location," she whispered. "Didn't we talk about opening the studio? This place has a great artistic atmosphere. It'll be easier to hire people in the future." I stopped mid-motion while picking up food and asked, "Did you finalize the investment?" Willow nodded. Makoto's family agreed. They gave him $5 million. Willow smiled brightly. "Once the studio opens, we can go to work together every day." Anna had already cut ties with Makoto, yet he was still able to come up with $5 million. I furrowed my brows. Makoto, that's a lot of money for an ordinary person. I didn't want to expose his lie, but I was more worried about Willow creating joint debts. I asked, "Is he really from a wealthy family? Are you sure?" Willow said, "I've been to his house for a meal. There's no problem." She hugged my arm and added, "Besides, the money has already been transferred." At that point, I had nothing more to say. Chapter 13. Willow leaned in, her gaze fixed on me. "So, you saw me meet with Makoto yesterday, right?" she said. "He only came to talk about a partnership. You saw, we met outside, barely exchanged a few words, and I went right after you." "Honey, I didn't want you to get into that car accident. I just didn't want you to misunderstand me." "Really?" she added, a hint of grievance in her voice. "If I had known, I wouldn't have chased after you." I stood there, stunned, my gaze unfocused. The only reaction I had was pulling my arm away. Seeing my cold response, Willow's expression fell. She furrowed her brows and said, "Ever since I started thinking about starting my own business, you've always been like this. I know you don't support me and don't understand me, but even so, I've managed to secure investment. I just want you to understand that women can have their own careers too." She bit her lip, staring at me. "I know sometimes I can be willful, not listen to advice, but I've realized my mistakes. Will get better than before." I remained silent. It made sense, but the problem was, I wasn't interested in hearing it. I glanced at my watch and said, "It's work hours. I'll head back now." After work, I didn't go straight home but instead headed to Makoto's villa area. I suspected Anna was playing me, that she hadn't really cut ties with him. I intended to hang around outside, but to my surprise, Anna had a garage in the neighborhood, so I drove in boldly. Makoto was standing by the road with 3 suitcases, and a moving van was parked next to him. Was he moving out of this house? I had just parked and opened the door when Makoto immediately came running over and said, "Hey, bro, can I borrow your car for a picture?" But when he saw who had gotten out of the car, his face froze. "Why is it you? Is this your car?" I didn't explain much. I glanced behind him and asked, "You're moving out?" He shrugged. "I've been living here too long, and it's getting boring around here. I bought a new place in the city center." He was probably kicked out, thinking I didn't know the real story. I said, "Happy moving." I found it somewhat amusing. Makoto scrutinized me. He replied, "Thanks, but I have some news for you." He walked closer, lowering his voice with a smile. "From now on, I'm going to be serious with your wife. Before, I was just playing around. That's why I didn't pay much attention to you." I thought carefully about his words and nodded. "If you're serious, doesn't that mean she's your wife now? Then I'm the one who was just played, right?" "Why you?" Makoto was speechless. 2 men in suits approached from a distance. The one in front looked familiar. It was Anna's assistant, the one who drove her. He saw me too. "Mr. Wang, what are you doing here?" he joked. "MS. Sue is selling one of her properties here. Are you interested? I've brought the agent along." I was speechless. "A few million for a property? Are you kidding me?" he said. "I'm not kidding." I turned around, and Makoto was already gone, along with his suitcases and the moving van. The assistant said nothing, just smiled. I asked him about the car insurance claim. He told me that this was personally handled by MS Sue, and he wasn't involved. I couldn't help but feel frustrated. The assistant then made a call to Anna. We agreed to meet at a new Chinese-style boat banquet restaurant later that evening. The boats were quietly docked by the lakeside, reflecting the colorful lights of the city. Anna arrived on time, but just as she stepped in front of me, the boat suddenly swayed. She lost her balance and fell toward me. I instinctively reached out and caught her securely. "Thank you." Chapter 14. Perhaps the scenery tonight was too beautiful. She didn't say anything unpleasant. We sat facing each other. Anna said, "I sent you the repair bill in advance. Have you looked at it? Is there any problem?" The dishes were prepared on a large boat in the middle of the lake, and the waiter rowed the boat to bring them over. So most of the time, it was just me and her on the boat. I pinched the space between my eyebrows and said, "MS Sue, I know your car isn't cheap, so it's normal for the repair costs to be higher. I'm not saying anything about that. But what does lost wages and mental distress compensation mean? And yesterday was the weekend." She replied, "I work on weekends too. I'm always on duty." I responded, "Isn't the lost wages fee a bit too high?" She said, "I earn a high income. I can't help it." I frowned. The problem is, with this quote, The insurance won't cover it for me, she said, accepting personal transfers. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to suppress my emotions, and asked, Anna, are you trying to scam me? Her expression was calm as she said, do you want to meet my lawyer? I was so angry I stood up, staring at her, locking eyes for a moment before sitting back down in silence. I said, Ms. Sue, where do you want me to get all this money from? I only make over $20,000 a month. If I don't eat or drink, I'd still be in debt for 10 years. And you know, my wife cheated on me with a student. I've already been through enough. Can you show some mercy and cut me some slack? Anna picked up a piece of bamboo shoot with her chopsticks. She said, the way you're saying this, it sounds like you're hinting at something. She glanced at me, raised an eyebrow and smiled. Luckily, I'm a decent person, so your wish won't come true. I couldn't believe it. I was so angry I almost laughed. I said, fine, fine. I'm not a decent person. Okay, but what about you? You know I don't have much money, yet you come up with such an exorbitant compensation fee. What does that mean? Don't tell me. You've been bringing me breakfast and lending me your car just to make me pay. She replied, very well. I'm glad we've cleared the air. She put down her chopsticks and looked me in the eye. She said, George, I like you. I stood there stunned for a long while, feeling uneasy as I stood up. She said, if you're single now, maybe we could take it slow. But to fall for a married man, I'm not going to be the other woman. So first, I need to make sure you can get a divorce as soon as possible. Anna took a step forward. I instinctively took a step back and bumped into the red lantern hanging from the cabin. She stopped right in front of me, so close that I could feel her breath. Anna slightly raised her eyes and asked, what do you think? The cabin was narrow, and with both of us standing so close, it felt even more cramped. I turned my head to look outside. The lights on the boat swayed, and the light on the water swayed too. I thought for a long, long time. I said, I will divorce, but it has nothing to do with you. Anna looked down and smiled. Good. She slowly turned around and stood beside me. She said, I haven't been in a relationship for a long time. Makoto was introduced by a friend. He's sort of a boyfriend candidate in the trial phase. There's nothing going on between us. Otherwise, I wouldn't have ended things with Willow so easily. I turned my head and said, why are you telling me this? What does it have to do with me? Anna turned her head and gave me a side eye, deliberately slowing her voice as she said, since you've told me something unrelated to you, I should share something unrelated to you as well. I was left speechless by her words. A breeze suddenly blew in, as if someone had lightly tapped the surface of the lake. The boat swayed gently with the ripples. The sound of the water beneath the boat spread up through the cabin and into my ears. Chapter 15. When I got home, the living room light was on, and Willow was still awake. You're back. Willow greeted me. I casually responded, noticing that the dining table was empty. She said, you didn't come back for dinner, so I didn't cook. Then she added, I ordered takeout. I nodded. After that, I walked towards the bedroom, entered the bathroom, and turned on the faucet. When I looked up, I saw Willow standing by the door in the mirror, her face looking disappointed as she asked, are you coming back for dinner tomorrow? I lowered my head, washing my face as I said, I took on a piano teaching job, from 7:30 to 9:30 every afternoon. Willow asked, don't you hate private lessons? I shrugged. The client is very sincere. After I finished washing my face, I turned to look at her and said, just like you teaching Makoto, someone with no foundation. Isn't that because of the high pay? Willow stared at me for a while, biting her lip as she asked, is it Anna? She's a good student, isn't she? I didn't deny it. Willow yanked the towel from my hands, hysterically shouting, you're married, George. Her face turned bright red, and she gasped, do you think this is exciting? I replied, well, that's up to you. I spoke coldly, my face expressionless as I said, if you think it's exciting, then I think it's exciting. If you think it's painful, then I think it's painful. Willow looked at me in disbelief. She slowly lowered her head. From that day on, Willow treated me better. Even though she knew about my interactions with Anna, she no longer expressed dissatisfaction about it. Perhaps, subconsciously, she realized that this relationship had reached an irreparable point, so she tried to create the illusion of a last-ditch effort. As for Anna, her existence or absence had never been the key issue. Of course, during this period, Willow also did some things that I couldn't understand. For instance, she deliberately bought the same perfume that Anna wears and asked me if it smelled good. To be honest, the fragrance was very faint, and before Willow pressed me, I hadn't even noticed that Anna wore perfume. But indeed, the moment I smelled it, I immediately thought of her. Willow said mysteriously, if you like it, I'll wear this one from now on. I ignored her, but Willow's actions had already caused a sort of mental disturbance in me. While playing the piano at Anna's place, I couldn't resist saying to her, why don't you change your perfume? Anna stretched out her long, fair fingers, pressing a few keys, producing off-key notes. She snorted, we're not even dating. Why should I care about her? I thought for a moment, closed the sheet music, propped myself up on the piano, and bent down to look at her. I said, what if I buy a new perfume and give it to you? Would you use it? She looked up at me, clenched her fist, and softly said, all right. Chapter 16. A few days later, I picked out a perfume to give her. It was a popular brand at the time, and many influencers were promoting it. Anna immediately opened it and tried it. Perhaps because the base notes were a bit sweet. She said it made her feel like someone who had been in the game too long and had to fight for clients. Her words were truly harsh. I seriously considered her idea and said, I get it. I'm curious. Customer first. Only then did Anna accept it. She turned to get some red wine, and at that moment, the phone on the island began to vibrate. She walked over, looked at it for a moment, then told me it was Makoto. I coughed, trying to turn and avoid the situation. She said there was no need, then answered the call and put it on speakerphone. Anna asked, "What's up?" Makoto's voice came through after a long pause, sounding humble and ingratiating. He pleaded, "Anna, I'm sorry. I've let you down. You won't forgive me. I'm not a good person. It's all my fault. I really regret it. All I want now is to see you once more. We never really started. At least give me a chance to make it up to you. Can I?" Anna didn't say a word, just ended the call. I asked, "Aren't you going to meet him?" Anna looked up at me and said, "He says, see me for the last time. Who knows what kind of trick he's trying to pull?" I asked, "How much did you spend on him? How could he send 5 million in cash to Willow?" Anna shook her head. "Just the money he claimed he'd invested in some startup. Not as much as you think. You say he sent 5 million. Maybe he has money of his own. He's probably scammed a lot of people." Clearly, Anna didn't want to continue this conversation. She stared at me intently and, with a complicated look, asked, "Why haven't you talked to your wife about getting a divorce?" My heart froze for a moment. I put down the wine glass and said, "I need to find direct evidence of her affair." Anna interrupted me and asked pointedly, "Is it for the lawsuit, or do you need it for yourself?" "Both." I said it without hesitation. There was nothing to hide. I even emphasized, "I need both. I do need it." Anna stared at me for a moment, then didn't press further. Instead, she came over and gave me a hug. She said, "I understand." This hug wasn't charged with any romantic tension. It conveyed only understanding and support. I lowered my head and could still smell the faint fragrance, her perfume from earlier. Only when I got closer did I realize how sweet the bass notes really were. The closer I got, the sweeter it became. She whispered, "Don't make me wait too long." Chapter 17. The divorce agreement with Willow was lying in my bedside drawer. I hadn't locked it. Willow cleaned the room every day, so maybe she had seen it. Maybe she hadn't. Or maybe she was pretending not to see it, waiting for me to bring it up. The lawyer told me that if I wanted a quick divorce, it was better to get the other party to sign the agreement. He said, after all, suing would waste several years. Getting Willow to agree to a peaceful divorce was nearly impossible. So from the beginning, I had been preparing for a lawsuit. I asked, "Why are you suddenly advising me?" The lawyer smiled and said, "It just feels like you're more urgent than before." I was stunned for a moment, then gave a wry smile. When I got home, Willow had made a large spread of food. She said, "You said you were coming back for dinner. So I came home early and even bought a fish." Come to think of it, it's been a while since I made such complicated dishes. Looking at the sumptuous meal, a sense of melancholy rose in my heart. "Thank you," I said. Willow froze for a moment, a smile tugging at her lips. She said, "My hands are a bit dirty. I'll wash up and we can eat together." The meal was very quiet. Willow stood up, took the dishes to the kitchen, and asked if I wanted to go watch a movie. She said, "We watched this movie on the computer when we were in school. It's being re-released this week. Didn't you say that when you had the chance, you'd take me to see it in the theater?" The sound of water running from the faucet muffled her voice, but she sounded in a good mood. I took a deep breath. I said, "Willow, actually, there's something I need to tell you." Her back stiffened for a moment. Willow turned off the faucet, leaving the dishes in the sink. She didn't care and turned to face me with a smile, but her words were hurried. She said, "I've picked the location. We're about to start the renovation, and I've already sent you the design drawings. Have you looked at them? How is it? I'm really tired lately, and I have to supervise the renovation myself." She rambled on about this and that, wiped her hands dry, then grabbed her phone and said she had to go out. I sat alone in the living room for a long time, pulled up that movie she mentioned, and watched it from start to finish. The end credits were still rolling. I placed the divorce agreement on the desk in the study, but from that day on, Willow never came back. What I didn't expect was that I ran into Makoto at the school where I was working part-time. "Yo, George, long time no see." I was standing at the podium, hadn't spoken yet, but Makoto didn't hesitate to greet me. The look in his eyes told me he was coming for me. Sure enough, after class, Makoto walked to the front of the podium. He said, "Can we add each other on WeChat? So if I have any questions, I can ask you." The other students hadn't left yet, and occasionally, someone glanced over at us. I exchanged a look with him and added his WeChat. Although the course was aimed at non-professionals, an interview was required, and most of the students were people from the industry. I went to find the department head. She was surprised and said, "He's the one Willow recommended to me. Didn't you know?" I froze for a moment. Chapter 18. Once I left the house, I called Willow. She didn't answer at first, but I kept calling, and finally, she picked up. I asked, enunciating every word, Why did you send Makoto to my place? Her voice was soft as she replied. That's something from before. He said he wanted a place where he could learn more systematically. So I recommended your place. Willow, can you just be a person? She said. I didn't mean to. I interrupted her. What? Do you think it's not enough for you to serve him alone? And now you want me to be involved? I was almost gritting my teeth as I said. You can quit your job and become his boss's wife. But I still have to work. I'm busy and tired. I don't have time to be a part of your little play. I was furious. I punched the railing, unable to hold myself back, and cursed. Also, stop crying in front of me, acting like I'm not supporting your startup, or that I don't understand you. How am I supposed to support you? You casually talk about mortgaging the house and taking on $2 million in debt, and you act like it's nothing. After a few good days, you think you can keep acting this way? Yeah, you quit your job, failed at your business, and wiped away some tears. But guess who's going to clean up the mess? It's me. You want to do whatever comes to your mind, but I'm not obligated to follow you down that road. And now you send Makoto over. In the end, Willow cried and said she could make Makoto drop out, but I refused. If he dropped out now, the department head would definitely figure out the relationship between the three of us. I could only try to reduce the number of courses I was taking. Even then, I couldn't completely avoid Makoto. During a practical lesson, he played a piece very well, and the other students were impressed with him. He stood up, turned to face me, and smirked. My girlfriend also teaches piano. I guess I've been influenced by her, he said, in front of the whole class. He openly provoked me. I calmly responded, that's good. After the class was over and everyone had left, I was tidying up when Makoto walked up to me and asked, hey, when are you going to divorce your wife? I looked up at him and casually replied, what's in it for me? He shrugged and said, of course, there's something in it for you. You've checked the hotel records and found nothing, right? I stayed silent. Makoto smiled slyly, one hand resting on the corner of the podium, and he took a step forward. He stroked his chin and said, have you ever been to a place? There's nothing there. Only cold lines. The person can only stand. But everywhere is a point of force. There. You can completely control the other person, and they can only give you everything. I didn't understand what he was talking about. Makoto, however, smiled indifferently. He said, George, you're really pathetic. Your wife is with someone else, and you're just swallowing your pride. Take my advice. Get a divorce as soon as possible and save yourself some dignity. Otherwise, who knows? You might even end up taking care of my kids. Haha. I clenched my fists, my expression dark. He clearly noticed, but just smiled and took a half step forward, saying, oh, you want to throw a punch? Go ahead, but think carefully. You don't want to lose your job and your face in the process. Before he could react, I slammed a punch into his nose. Makoto covered his face and cursed. You really hit me. Fine, just wait. I didn't care. I could always find another job. Just as I was about to speak, a woman's voice suddenly came from nearby. If I expose all the blackmail I have about you pretending to be a rich second generation and scamming people, what do you think will happen? I have videos, photos, handwritten apology letters. I could post it for 3 days straight and still not finish. Makoto turned in shock, as if he hadn't expected this person to appear. Anna. Chapter 19. I didn't know when Anna arrived at the back door of the classroom. She walked in with a neutral expression, and Makoto, noticing her, took the initiative to speak, lowering his voice. Anna, what brings you here? Anna gave him a glance, her voice emotionless as she replied, didn't you want to see me? Makoto was stunned for a moment and then laughed. How did you know I was here? Anna ignored him, walking past him and coming over to stand by my side. She asked Makoto, weren't you being so arrogant just now? Why did you stop? Makoto's eyes showed disbelief. His face turned complex as he became incoherent. You guys, so it was you. George, you're the one who's been stealing from me. How could you do this? I rolled my wrists and replied, I don't need to explain myself to you. Makoto clearly wanted to confront me, but with Anna standing there, he had to suppress his anger. He said, Anna, he's lying to you. He's married. Anna's expression remained unchanged as she calmly said, I don't need you to remind me. Anna glared at him and said, you should take sick leave for the next few days and then find a reason to drop out. Don't come back. She added, if you handle this badly, you know what the consequences will be. Anna had come to find me for dinner. Thanks, I said. Anna and I walked out the door, and she still had that dignified and reserved demeanor. She said, actually, if I hadn't cut ties so decisively, he wouldn't have come to cause trouble for you. I smiled helplessly. A week later, Makoto had completed his withdrawal procedures. He specifically came to find me, and his attitude had completely changed. He begged me not to expose him in front of Willow, not to mention his rich second-generation act. He also promised not to tell Willow about my relationship with Anna. I said, your personal life has nothing to do with me, and I don't need you to cover up my relationship with Anna. He smiled ingratiatingly and said, George, it was all a misunderstanding. Since you and Anna are together, we're even now, and we have no more conflicts. Even if you don't like me, for Anna's sake, you'll divorce her, right? He looked at me with hopeful eyes, but I remained silent. He became anxious and said, I know, I've wronged you. I deserve it. But my love for Willow is real. I deceived her about my identity, but my feelings for her were genuine. For her, I gave all the savings I had. Makoto left. After he withdrew, the other students started gossiping about him, saying that he acted wealthy but always skipped out on paying the bill during meals. The department head also became curious and asked about our relationship. I brushed it off, saying, he's just a relative of a friend, not very familiar. The department head nodded thoughtfully. I had a feeling of relief, like surviving a near miss. Then the department head suddenly asked, how do you know the president of Longshore Group? I was stunned for a moment and asked, who? She said, Anna. She said you introduced her to us for the donation event. She donated 3 whole buildings. The ceremony is coming up, so remember to attend. Ah, this person was so random. At the donation ceremony, I was asked to go up on stage to thank her. As I handed her the flowers, she shook my hand and hugged me. Her behavior was very official, except for the slightly overpowering scent of her perfume. The vice dean, who had some rhinitis, couldn't hold back a sneeze, and then had to praise her as very modern. I almost couldn't control my smile. The leaders on stage were giving grand speeches. Anna and I were seated next to each other off stage, and we couldn't help but whisper. I asked, why did you donate the buildings? She spoke in a hushed voice. They said they would carve my name on the entrance. Everyone will see it. I thought, you'd be able to see it. I was silent for a moment before asking, wait, if I see your name, will it help me eat an extra meal? She replied, no. Anna glanced around, looking like a thief, and leaned closer to whisper, it's to remind you to get a divorce. I was speechless. Chapter 20. I wanted to get a divorce, but Willow just wanted to avoid reality, and taking advantage of the fact that she was busy with the renovation of the new place. She hadn't come home in a long time. On the way back with Anna, we passed by the training center where Willow used to work. I saw Willow's car parked outside. I said, you go ahead. I'll talk to her. But Anna said, I'll wait here. I entered the center. The place was empty. Some people were moving things. Others were cleaning. I looked for an older woman and asked where Willow was. Her Mandarin was unclear, but she seemed to say that Willow was in a meeting with the boss to talk about the follow-up on equipment purchases. I had no choice but to keep walking. I went upstairs. All the doors were open except for a small door near the bathroom, which was closed. It surprised me a little, so I pushed the door, but it was locked. The cleaning lady saw me and asked, Mr. Wong, do you need to use the bathroom? The one over there is still available. This accessible bathroom has been out of service for a long time. Accessible bathroom. I froze, slowly turning my head, not knowing what expression to show. I asked, how long has it been broken? She replied, a long time. Since I started working here, I've never seen it open. I felt my nails digging deep into the palm of my hand. The sharp pain made me react. I asked, who has the key? The answer was obvious. I quickly turned around and left the place, called a locksmith, and went to open the door. The inside of the bathroom was very narrow. The floor and ceiling were white. Only the handrails were bright yellow, but there were many handrails around the toilet, next to the sink, on the walls. Bright lines ran through the space, dividing it into sections. I reached out and grabbed one of the handrails. I squeezed it with some force. It was really firm. Have you ever been to a place like this? There's nothing, just cold lines, where you can only stand, but there are supports everywhere. There you can have complete control over the other person, and they can only surrender completely to you. Makoto's voice echoed in my head, over and over. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I placed my hands on the edge of the sink. It took a long time before I looked up, and I saw my reflection in the mirror. My face was the image of extreme discomfort. At that moment, I felt like I had become two people. I should have felt cold, but the person in the mirror had a horrendous expression. I fell into a state of confusion. Even through the mirror, I saw Willow, standing behind me, embraced by Makoto, both tangled up with each other. Suddenly, I turned around, raised my hand to hit the vision, but in the next second, I stopped. George, Anna looked at me confused. That's when I snapped back to reality, stumbling a step forward. Anna, surprised, quickly held me and said, what's wrong with you? I looked at her silently, my mind completely disordered, not knowing how to calm myself. Suddenly something occurred to me. I lowered my head and got closer to her. Alarmed, Anna pulled away, calling me, George. Her tone changed. She then began to look around, her expression thoughtful, but she opened her mouth as if she thought her idea was too absurd. I steadied myself and, with little energy, said to her, help me close the door. She nodded, turned, and pushed the door halfway, saying, then I'll leave. Before she could finish speaking, I pushed her hard. The door slammed shut with a loud sound. Anna turned, with no time to react. I pushed her again and she fell against the door, her back hitting the wood. She inhaled sharply, and before she could say anything, I kissed her, blocking any sound she might make. Chapter 21. Anna stared at me in a daze. Because of the height difference, I held her down, leaned down, and kissed her deeply. Anna raised her hand to slap me a few times, but then slowly wrapped her arms around my neck. Anna tilted her head back. I thought to myself, she has surrendered, but in the next second, she pushed both hands against my chest, creating distance between us, breathing heavily, and said, "George, calm down. What are you doing?" Actually, I didn't know either. I really wanted to know. Looking into Anna's probing eyes, complicated emotions spread in my heart, like damp lake water rushing up. I bitterly smiled, reached out, and touched her cheek, saying, "Am I that bad, Anna? Where am I worse than that Makoto? Does it matter?" She looked up and met my gaze, then shook her head, saying, "No, you're much better than him." I gave a self-deprecating smile and asked, "Then why do you like him?" Anna's eyes reddened as she said, "George, I'm sorry, I'm not Willow." I froze for a moment. Did she think I mistook her for someone else? I waved my hand and calmly said, "I know who you are. You are Anna." The body in my arms visibly stiffened. She lifted her head to look at me. Her earlobe flushed bright red. Her breath was uneven. She said, "You're so good at tormenting people." The next second, Anna wrapped her arms around my neck, with almost no hesitation, stood on tiptoe, and kissed me passionately. Chapter 22. She was completely different from Willow. Willow was gentle and reserved. Anna was clearly more proactive, even dominant. Looking into her captivating eyes, I remembered something Makoto had said. "There, you can have complete control over the other person, and she can only surrender completely to you." So, this is what it was like. Then, she pulled back. She said, "All right." I opened my mouth, speechless. Seeing my complex expression, Anna couldn't help but laugh. She said, "We can continue the rest later." She pressed her lips together and said, "I don't like being in a place like this." I paused and smiled. Yes, you're a decent person." But Anna suddenly changed her tone and said, "I like places with a wide view." I was speechless. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the other side of the door, as if someone was unlocking it with a key. The next second, the door opened, and Willow stood at the doorway, her face dark with anger. She bit her lip and said, "Didn't you know there are cameras outside?" I didn't speak, just stood there and straightened my clothes. Willow was triggered by this move and rushed over to grab me. But Anna suddenly spoke. "Willow, we finally meet." She looked Willow up and down, the corners of her mouth curling into a complex, cold smile. Willow glanced at her, almost gritting her teeth, and said, "Ms. Sue, you should keep your distance from other people's husbands." Anna Sue took half a step forward, her expression disdainful as she said, "What if I say no?" Willow glared at her, her eyes red, but after locking eyes with Anna for a moment, she finally snorted and said, "I won't fall for your tricks." She turned to me and said, "You should apologize to me, George." I suddenly let out a cold laugh. I said, "Apologize for what?" "For being in the same place, doing the same thing as you. Do I need to apologize for that?" Willow's clenched fist tightened. She said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I shrugged and stared into her eyes, my tone aggressive as I said, "Really? When you opened the door earlier, there was no one outside, because you had already arrived, right? You waited until we were silent, then decided to open the door. What are you afraid of? Don't you know?" I remembered Anna's words. People who cheat are more insecure than people who don't cheat, because they know what they're doing when they don't pick up the phone. She reddened her eyes, hysterically saying, "I didn't want to embarrass you." "I'm not embarrassed enough already," I cursed. Willow froze for a moment. I tiredly rubbed my neck, exhaled, and said, "Let's get a divorce." "Willow, every moment I've spent with you has made me sick." Willow remained silent for a long time before murmuring, "I love you, George." Chapter 23. I slapped her. I couldn't help it. I just couldn't stand the pitiful look she was giving me. Anna, Willow, and I found a private room to talk. Willow regained her calm composure. As soon as she opened her mouth, she made her stance clear. She wouldn't agree to the divorce. She said, "As long as we're not divorced, we are legally married." "Anna, you're the young lady of the Sue family. Are you really willing to throw your dignity away and be a mistress, sharing a husband with me?" Anna Sue couldn't help but sneer, then said, "Actually, we have shared one." She deliberately paused to enjoy the look on Willow's face, then continued, "But not this one." Willow was both angry and confused. She asked, "What are you talking about?" Anna cheerfully replied, "Do you want me to call Makoto over?" Willow froze, rooted to the spot. She asked, "Do you know Makoto?" Anna confidently sat beside me. I said, "Willow, weren't you asking me how I knew her?" I slowly lifted my head and looked at Willow. I said, "Your affair was with the kept boy that she was paying for." Willow seemed struck by lightning. Her face alternated between pale and red, then back to white. I was very familiar with that awkward expression. Anna looked content, watching her with interest. "Willow, how should we settle the fact that you stole my boyfriend? I wasn't going to make a fuss about it, but you keep bringing up George and me. You've got no intention of reciprocity. It's a bit too much, don't you think?" Willow was unsteady on her feet. Makoto. Willow seemed to suddenly snap back to reality. She said, I never had any relations with him. She came in front of me, squatted down, and hugged my legs, saying, "Do you believe others and not me?" I looked at her coldly and said, "I saw you kissing him." Willow became emotional, even crying. She choked and said, "He suddenly pounced on me and forced himself on me. If you had looked for just one more second, you'd have seen that I pushed him away." I closed my eyes deeply. I reached out, pulled her away, and pushed her back with force. At this point, why bother? Why continue to deceive oneself? Anna couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Are you done talking? I paid a high price to buy a video from Makoto. Although you were careful and wore a blindfold, the video clearly shows the ring on your hand and your voice. I believe George can recognize it, but I haven't shown it to him yet." I looked at her in surprise. When did she get this evidence? Anna looked at Willow, who was now pale, and seriously asked her, "Willow, are you sure you want to completely destroy his image of you?" Willow heard this and stared at me, motionless. Finally, she covered her face with her hands, letting out a painful sob, her body shaking uncontrollably. In the end, she admitted it. With one last thread of hope, Willow came to me, cautiously speaking. "Honey, will you forgive me? I'm willing to forgive you. Let's just consider that we've both made a mistake, and forgive each other. Okay, I swear I'll cut ties with Makoto and never see him again. The person I've always loved is you. I've never thought of leaving you. Honey, I can't live without you." Chapter 24. As I looked at Willow, crying uncontrollably, I suddenly felt much calmer. So, this was how it was. Her calmness in the past was built on my pain. Now that she was bearing this pain, I had become calm. "No," I gave my answer. "Let's get a divorce." I took Anna's hand and said, "Willow, I'm in a hurry. So if you want an uncontested divorce, regarding the division of property, you'd better leave with nothing. If you don't cooperate, I will hand the evidence over to my lawyer." Willow opened her mouth, her face pale, and said, "I understand." After getting into the car, Willow suddenly ran after us, reaching the passenger side window. I sat in the car. Anna rolled down the window and asked, "Is there something else? You're not his type." Willow specifically came over to say that. Anna merely smiled lightly, saying, "Taste can be cultivated." Anna turned her head away and slowly rolled up the window. The car accelerated, and Willow's figure was soon left far behind. I stared ahead, saying nothing, thinking about nothing. I don't know how much time passed before Anna suddenly spoke. "What do you think?" "What?" I didn't know what she was asking. Anna said, "About my type." Her gaze turned evasive, and her tone was uncertain. "You seem to prefer gentler girls." I paused and said, "I don't think so." "You do," Anna replied confidently. "Willow figured it out, so she adjusted herself to the type you like." She paused, turned to look at me, and said, "Now I've figured it out too, but I won't do that. I want you to like the real me." I was stunned for a moment, as if I understood something. After a while, I nodded and said, "I will." She said, "Good. Now, let's go eat." Anna tilted her head, her lips curving into a faint smile. She said, "Congratulations to you, and congratulations to me." Chapter 25. Willow signed the divorce agreement, transferring all the property to me. She pushed the agreement in front of me. She said, "I'm doing this because of me, not because of Anna." Although this was the result I wanted. Before signing, I still asked, "All of it? Are you sure?" Willow stared at me and suddenly smiled, saying, "Actually, all of this won't amount to much for you in the future." I remained silent for a moment and said, "But how about the 5 million Makoto owes you? Don't mention him again. We've already broken up." Willow coldly slammed the pen down, interrupting me. She said, "When you called me last time, I had already broken up with him." I looked at her for a moment, lowered my head, and signed without hesitation. When I left the Civil Affairs Bureau, I received a call from Anna. I nodded while listening, and said, "All right, I'm done here. I'm on my way." Willow followed me out, chasing after the car. Coming up to the passenger side window, I sat in the car, and Anna rolled down the window, asking, "Anything else?" "You're not his type." Willow specifically said that. Anna merely smirked, saying, "Taste can be cultivated." Anna turned her head and slowly rolled up the window. The car accelerated, and Willow's figure was left far behind. I stared ahead, saying nothing, thinking nothing. I don't know how much time passed before Anna suddenly spoke. "What do you think?" "What?" I didn't know what she was asking. Anna said, "About my type." Her gaze turned evasive, and her tone was hesitant. "You seem to like gentler girls." I paused and said, "I don't think so." "You do," Anna replied confidently. "Willow figured it out, so she adjusted herself to your type." She paused, turned to look at me, and said, "Now I've figured it out too, but I won't do that. I want you to like the real me." I was stunned for a moment, as if I understood something. After a while, I nodded and said, "I will." She said, "Good. Now, let's go eat." Anna tilted her head, her lips curving into a faint smile. She said, "Congratulations to you, and congratulations to me." We arrived at my place, and Anna had already arranged for the moving company and the real estate agent to be there. It was quite a show. Willow had just gotten out of the car when Anna pointed at her and instructed the people around her, Just follow her upstairs. Movers, move. Photographers, take pictures. Willow looked pale, turning to me and asking, "Are you selling the house?" I gently nodded. Anna walked over, hooked her arm around mine, and said, "Miss Lou, goodbye." Willow Lou stared at us, opened her mouth, but no words came out. I drove away with Anna. I asked, "Where are we moving to?" It seemed like Anna had already decided. She said, "To the room at the far end on the right side of the second floor. Moving to her place." I cleared my throat and said, "What for?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she winked at me and said, "It has a great view." I was speechless. I could only focus on the road ahead, but inside, I was feeling a bit restless. Soon, I found out that the room at the far end on the right side of the second floor did indeed have an amazing view. Anna dragged me inside, her eyes full of desire. I cleared my throat and said, "Anna." She wrapped her arms around my neck, holding me tight, and said, "Why are you calling my name? Let's get to the point." And so, by the floor-to-ceiling windows, our entwined figures shattered the sunlight streaming into the room. Anna fell into the soft bed, lying in my arms, staring at me for a while. Her gaze deepened. Her lips were wet and shining, her voice hoarse as she said, "When I first met you, I thought you'd be some scary guy coming to demand answers. I never expected a tall, handsome guy like you to walk in and tell me your wife cheated on you, like something out of a movie. Do you know how that made me feel?" She smiled slightly and said, "I forgave the trouble Makoto brought me in 1 second." I sighed helplessly and said, "So, you had planned this from the start, right?" She leaned closer and whispered, "Half of it, yes." I asked, "What's the other half?" She replied, "The other half was hesitation. I thought your wife must be so beautiful. That would have been tough, right?" I smiled and pinched her chin, my thumb brushing over her lips. She said, You ruined my lipstick." I said, "It looks better this way." Anna stared at me intently, her gaze becoming subtle. She leaned in to whisper in my ear, her voice trailing with a teasing tone. "You're done for. I'm not a serious person in bed." I widened my eyes and said, "But we just..." Before I could finish, her kiss silenced me. After that, new thrills surged within us. We almost forgot everything around us, simply getting closer, taking, responding, over and over again, as if the whole world only existed for us. After getting up, I looked out the floor-to-ceiling window at the scenery, a vast expanse of green mountains. The view wide and unobstructed. The sky above the mountains was a soft blue, with the occasional bird flying by, chirping loudly. I stood there, holding a cup of water. Anna reached out her hands from behind and hugged me. She said, "George, what are you thinking about?" I turned around, hugged her, pinched her chin, and looked down at her. I said, "Summer is here." She lowered her eyes gently, holding me tighter. She said, "That sounds romantic." We slept through to summer. The rainy, confused spring had ended.